Guerra. I am the state president with NAIFA here in Massachusetts, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the fourth part of our Advisor Experience Month. This is the quarter century experience, so this morning we're going to be having a panel discussion with 3 advisors in Massachusetts who have been in the business 25 years or more. And they'll be sharing their thoughts and experiences over the course of their career, and hopefully provide some good insight on how they've been successful in the business, and maybe some things that didn't work as well. So welcome to everyone. And before we get started, I do just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about NAIFA. For those on the call who aren't familiar, NAIFA is the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. And actually, before I go down that road, I do want to do a couple housekeeping things. Everyone's cameras are turned off for the time being. At the end of the discussion panel, we will have a little bit of time for questions. I know that's a little risky in the virtual world. Occasionally you end up with crickets, but I do want to point out, if anybody has questions, write those down, and we'll have some time at the end for questions of the panel. You'll be muted as well, so if you do have a question, just make sure you unmute yourself when we open it up for questions. For those on the call who celebrated Yom Kippur yesterday, Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us. The call will be recorded, so you can send the link out after the call to rewatch or share with colleagues if you found some value in it. So please feel free to share at will. I think there's going to be some great content this morning. For those who are not familiar with NAIFA, NAIFA was actually founded in 1890 back in the Omni Parker House in Boston. We have a long history of advocacy on behalf of the industry and our clients as well. The organization was founded on advocacy, but there's really 3 main pillars of the organization: advocacy, education, and differentiation for our membership. So the advocacy portion of what we do is obviously very important. Today, we're going to be focusing more on the education and differentiation, and hoping that providing content like this, adds some value to your membership. So thank you again for everyone joining the call this morning. I do want to give Mike Elcock a moment to talk a little bit about PAC and why that's important.
Well, thanks, Josh. Appreciate being here. PAC is our political action committee. What we do is we raise dollars from our members, so we go down to Washington locally to our constituents and give dollars to them so we have an opportunity to share our thoughts, our views. It's not something we do to get their votes, but to give them support. And I've said all along with Washington and locally, money talks. And basically, if we're going to have an opportunity to get in front of anyone, we're going to need to show that we support them one way or another with our PAC. But we need that with your help to give the money, because it's important that we have those dollars to be able to give out. So if you haven't given this year, please give. As little as $125 goes a long way, and it would mean a lot. Connell Tarr is our Massachusetts representative representing Mass, so you'll be hearing from Connell and I in the near future about making a contribution if you haven't, or helping us get in front of people that haven't. So please do it. It's part of our job. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. As the saying goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So make sure that you make your contributions so that we get a seat at the table and make our voices heard in DC and at the State House as well. So thanks, Mike. Thanks for all the work that you do, and Connell as well. So I'm just going to take a minute to introduce our speakers this morning. First, we have Doug DeCervo. Doug's specialty is working with business owners, and he has an expertise in estate and business planning. Originally from upstate New York, Doug joined Northwestern Mutual in 1995 after graduating from Hartwood College, and has helped his clients secure their family's future for the past 25 years. He's been a member of the MDRT, the $1 Million Roundtable, every year since 1999 and earned his Charter Life Underwriter designation. He holds his FINRA Series 6, 63, 66, and 7 registrations, as well as life, accident, and health insurance licenses. As principal of Century Hill Financial Advisors, Doug embodies the philosophy of firm, uncompromising integrity, keen insight, and unwavering commitment. Doug and his wife, Erin, live in Lexington, Massachusetts, with their 3 sons and 2 daughters. So thank you, Doug, for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Mike Elcock. Mike is a financial advisor at the Bullfinch Group with 30 plus years in the financial services industry. The Bullfinch Group is a financial services and insurance advisory firm located in suburban Boston, providing comprehensive insurance and investment services to individuals, families, and businesses that are seeking to integrate the many aspects of their personal economy. Michael is a repeat qualifier and lifetime member of the $1 Million Roundtable, the premier professional association for financial professionals. Prior to joining the Bullfinch Group, Michael was affiliated with Phoenix Financial Associates in Boston. He's the recipient of the NAIFA Ray B. Green Scholarship Award for Success in Business and Community Involvement. Mike graduated from UNH with a BA in psychology and resides in Needham with his wife, Lise, and 3 adult sons. So thanks, Mike, for joining us this morning.
Happy to be here.
And last but not least, we have Connell Tarr. Connell has been in the insurance and financial services industry since attaining his life and health and Series 1 licenses in 1973. He has worked in various roles as an advisor, supervisor, assistant manager, agency sales director, and general agent, currently as a financial advisor with Prudential Advisors. He received his BS from Boston University's Questrom School of Business and has continued to get his credentials from the American College. He's active in the industry. He's active in industry organizations like NAIFA, SFSP, and the New Hampshire Estate Planning Council. He helps business owners and families create an estate, accumulate assets, and preserve their wealth to spend depending on their financial lives. He and his wife Lillian have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. He enjoys golf at Haverhill Country Club, skiing, boating, and especially their place at Lake Sunapee. And he also just got back from a trip to Ireland yesterday afternoon, I believe. So Connell, thanks for shaking off the cobwebs and joining us this morning. I appreciate you being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's everybody's bio. I think one of the most interesting aspects of getting to know advisors in the business is figuring out how they actually got involved in the business. Because nobody, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but very few people actually, grow up thinking they want to be an insurance advisor. So I think it's, that's a good place to start. Why don't each one of you kind of tell us a little bit about how you got into the business and more importantly, what keeps you in the business for 25 plus years? Mike, do you want to start out with that?
Happy to. So 30 plus years ago, I was actually working for a Fortune 500 company, Georgia Pacific. And I was doing well there, but I was frustrated for the simple reason that the general manager for my territory knew exactly on January 1 what my earnings would be that year, based on my sales and bonus and whatnot. And I felt that I just was not earning my potential. So extremely frustrated. And I was actually talking to one of my brothers. I'm one of 8, 5 older brothers, my brother Jim, and he had just purchased a life insurance policy from one of his college roommates or friends. And he said, hey, he's trying to build a team. Wanted to go talk to him. I think he'd be perfect for it. He is in commercial real estate. So it's an awful lot like my business. You eat what you kill. But you build up renewals and you can create your own business. And as soon as I heard create my own business with no overhead, I said, I'm in, I want to do it. I went and talked with Frank DeLeo over at Phoenix, talked to Mass Mutual, talked to New York Life, And I walked out with a big head because everybody wanted to hire me. I go, wow, I must be something special. Settled on Phoenix because I felt most comfortable there, and I got into the business as a life guy. I was life and DI, didn't do investments, did a little group to get in front of the business owners. But over the 30 years, as I'll talk as we go on, how my practice has grown from being a life guy to a full-fledged financial planner. So and what keeps me in the business is the ability to keep, we all say we want to help people. Yeah, we do that, want to do that. But I stay in the business because I enjoy it. And it's something that allows me the autonomy to do what I want, but also have the ability to work with my clients when, where, and how I want. So that's long and short of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Connell, do you want to give your story on how you got into it?
Sure. I was just a kid out of Boston University. And back in 73, there weren't a lot of, the economy wasn't doing as well. So basically sales jobs I was looking at. However, I had a chance to go into the it was Bank of Boston at the time, now taken over a few times, Bank of America, as a trainer and kind of moving my way up the corporate structure, or to get into business for myself. And like Mike, I decided, my grandfather told me that if I was worth, $1 to the corporation, I was worth like $10 for myself. So I decided to get into business, also with Phoenix Mutual at the time, and started off. And back then, I was one of the last people to get the Series 1. Now, of course, you think the Series 7 or the 24, you think those are hard exams, but the Series 1, you could sell everything with that. Okay. It's been a great business for me. Most of my time I've been in management, although I've always continued to have clients. And now I've gotten out of the management end of it and am just helping clients. And so I'm having fun, keeping busy, and helping a lot of people. So that's why I'm here.
Great, thanks, Connell. Doug, do you want to share your story?
Sure. As Josh mentioned, originally from upstate New York, so I was called to Boston when I moved here. And my brother also introduced me to the business. He's a rep with Northwestern Mutual in upstate New York. I was a painting contractor, which made me uniquely qualified to give financial advice. But I was living with him in Albany, New York. He was doing quite well. We were in our late 20s. And, I said, well, if he can make some money. I was doing okay in the contracting business, but I kind of felt it wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. My wife was originally from Boston. We went to college together. We were trying to make a decision about what we were going to do together. And ultimately, we moved it to Boston, and I started in May of '95 in downtown Boston, and have been since then at 1 Beacon Street with Northwestern Mutual in Boston for the last 27 years, and now in the same building for 26 years. So kind of the same spot, and introduced by my brother, and the rest of the story.
The rest is history, right?
That's right.
So to kick things off, I want to kind of talk a little bit about how you guys have each built your business, and what the most important thing to focus on to continue to grow and thrive, because it's sometimes easy to get complacent. You reach plateaus. How do you continue to motivate yourself to grow your practice and find new clients? Connor, you want to kick that one off?
Well, it is interesting. I had my first job at a young age. I was a paper boy, and um, I've always had a job. I've always had, where I've been able to earn some money and to do something. Okay, and certainly then, as my career evolved into management, it was really then getting my results were attained through helping others get their result. Um, and um, and it was more of a coaching type thing. But certainly relationships were a big part of that in getting helping advisors to grow their practice. And so now I've just really sort of graduated to the point where, although I am building a little team, I have a couple of associates working with me. But it is really then what motivates me is then getting up in the morning with something to do in the area of being able to help people and help them solve their financial problems.
And seeing others succeed around you.
Right.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Connell. Mike or Doug, do you have insight on what how you continue to stay motivated and continue to build your practice?
Well, as Adam said, it was highly productive. So I have 5 children under the age of 22. And that keeps me pretty motivated every day because 3 of them are in college right now. But I've always had, like Connell, an entrepreneurial focus. I owned my own business for every year of my life, but one when I worked for someone else. And it's never bothered me to start from zero and to kind of create something. I think Mike said earlier, the barrier to entry in this business was very low. And so that was an easy way to get in, other than credit card debt I incurred and the school loans I had. It was, it was the zero investment other than my time and work. So that fear still keeps me motivated. The fear of not being successful, the fear of not having financial independence. And then the motivation around prospecting. It's a lot harder than it used to be to get in front of people, just in terms of dialing the phone 50 times a day, like I did early on. So, but I really enjoy prospecting, and it's a prospecting business, and creatively how to get in front of more business owners. So about 20 years ago, I joined a bunch of construction industry associations. I had cold called lawyers to get started in downtown Boston because it was easy to do, and their numbers and names were there, and there was no emails in 95. So, you could call them and they pick up 15 to 20% of the time. Now it's probably less than 10% of the time. But some of those lawyers are some of my largest planning clients now, but I left kind of that environment about 10 years into the business because I really wanted to work with business owners. So I focused on these associations. I still go to meetings at these associations. I'm a known person in the commercial construction trades. So I actually have a network of, large commercial general and subcontractors that I know pretty well. And it's a very interesting business to me. So that's where I now spend a lot of time and try to continue to creatively prospect to those. I mean, I'll work with anyone, but that's a focus of mine.
Thanks, Doug. Mike, do you want to
yeah,
share your
so
insights?
I think Doug hit the nail on the head with the word fear. I think what keeps me in the business is fear. I mean, basically not fear that I'm going to fail at this point, although you never know. But the fear that you're not going to stay prevalent in the business, and that essentially that what I have found, and I've seen in my 30 years, that this business is not easy. And after a while, I've seen many people find an easier way to make $1 within the business, whether they get into real estate or other aspects of it. And what I've seen is once someone gets out of the business or they take their focus off the business, it's very, very difficult to get back in the business. So I've always kept that in the back of my head and said, my number one priority is my business, getting in front of my clients and helping them to protect themselves and their families and doing a full financial planning program. One of the things I was thinking about how what Connell said about, he's always had a job where he's earned money, et cetera. And I was thinking about all my jobs. First job I had was in a movie theater. And I still remember to this day, punching in, punching out. I go, geez, I just can't see myself doing this. I can't punch in earlier. I can't punch in later. I can't make any more dollars here than I wanted to, no matter how good I am. So every job I've had since then, teaching tennis, waiting tables, and now getting in the insurance business and sales, I've had the ability to say, hey, I'm going to earn my keep based on how well I do. And to me, that's the most important thing. Most people think a 100% commission job is scary, and it's something that, it's tough to do, but it's one of the best careers you have because you have the most control and security because it's up to yourself. So that's what keeps me in the business, keeps me going, is really basically that I want to stay in the business. And I want to stay focused on what I'm doing. And I'm doing that by, bringing good people in around me. Because certainly I can't talk to a 30-year-old like some of my colleagues can, because it's just we're in different worlds. And that's helped as well, which I'll talk further about. But that's the one. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. So that actually kind of leads into, one of the other topics that we had discussed, particularly one of the things that you brought up, Doug, in our prep call for our meeting today was, building a business as a business, particularly in the financial services, field. Can you share your insights in terms of how you've structured your practice to be, more of a business and something that's, scalable, and you've grown your team? So do you want to give a little insight on that end of things?
Sure. I think that, having that entrepreneurial bent and working with business owners in particular, ultimately we come to this realization that, if you really want to grow a large practice, you need a lot of help. And it would be nice to have a partner you can trust and have your back should something happen to you, for the benefit of your staff, your clients, your family, because that's what business owners do. A lot of them do have partners, which may or may not work out. I've been very fortunate to have a partner that, our personalities are total opposites, but our value system is perfectly aligned. He's a closer, he's direct, he's, tough, but in a good way. I mean, he's a very positive person. I'm much more laid back and, could care less if I close the business or not. And my sense of urgency is not like his. So we're a perfect complement in that way. And our value system is perfectly aligned. So when we teamed up about 10 years ago, we were able to create an LLC. We own the business. Century Hill Financial Advisors is a marketing name. We have a different LLC that we own. We have a buy-sell agreement. We share 7 staff. There's 9 of us total. And so we have continuity for our clients, but more importantly, we have the ability to create scale and manage our own salespeople, start to think about transition. We're in our early 50s. We need to think about, if I'm going to bring on a 40-year-old, that 40-year-old may say, where are you going to be in 15 years? Which I may or may not be involved. I picture myself being involved for a very long time, but if something happens to me tomorrow that's catastrophic or not my control, we have a plan, a very specific plan. We have a plan for our staff. We have insurance that is insuring every area of the practice that we're able to. So we practice what we preach. We have a 401k plan. We have health benefits. I mean, we have all these things any other business owner would have. And the result of that is 10 years later, the stock market has obviously helped, but we're also very aggressive prospectors and salespeople. The practice is what I would call larger than us. So maybe much like a managing partner. we're running a practice and we have a lot of, expenses and payroll, but we have all the benefits that any small business owner would install for their own folks. So that's kind of what it looks like. That helps.
And what was that something that you initially set out to do, or is that something that has kind of evolved over time? And when did that kind of light bulb turn on in terms of direction you want to take your practice in?
Well, it's interesting what Mike said before about people getting into the real estate business. I mean, we have one gentleman in Boston who has much more net worth and value in real estate than he ever did in the insurance business. The downside is he probably produces a quarter of what any successful rep produces in Boston. Maybe, I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know that for a fact, but I did have someone tell me many years ago, if you just focus on the business that you're in, even though it's hard and it's tough to call people, you just focus on this business, it will compound at, in the early years, 20 to 100%. In the later years, still 10 to 15, which is, you meet with any business owner and you're growing at 10 to 15% a year, 25 years in, you've got a very successful, thriving business. And that's where we've been the last 15 years. So I took that advice and said, some days I hate the business, but I'm just going to focus on grow. So we made a conscious decision to focus on the financial planning business, and we knew we needed staff. And again, entrepreneurially, I always thought, geez, someday I'll have a large business, and I think, it'll be really successful. And we're kind of there now. We think we can double it, maybe once, maybe two more times, who knows? But I don't know. The growth piece, you're either growing or you're dying. So the growth piece has never been a question. We just have to keep growing. It's a little bit more strategic now. How do we want to grow? How much? What are we going to do? We're having a real problem trying to find our own salespeople. That's been a very big challenge for us.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug. Mike or Connell, do either one of you have insights to add there in terms of how to grow your practice as a business?
I'll take that. Hold on, before Connell. So what I've done is, like Doug, stay focused on my core business. But with that, I needed to have the ability to help people with their investments, their group benefits. I deal with a lot of business owners. And entree to that is the group benefits. They're paying already for those benefits. So those are dollars that they're already spending. Maybe I can get those dollars and use them and then leverage those into a relationship, which has worked out well. But I've partnered up with specialists in each of those areas. I have, guys that do my group, guys that do my 401k, someone does my investments. I do the insurance and disability. We share, the pieces that I bring him in on, which works out well. So it allows me to focus on my core. I've always said you can't be, the jack of all trades. So I really just focus on what I know best and brought in experts to do those particular fields that I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm not doing it day in and day out, and don't want to get bogged down and lose focus on my core business by focusing on those other pieces. So a lot of, some people have said, hey, you're crazy, you're giving up half the revenue in those particular specialties. And I said, well, that's fine, because it allows me to be more productive in my core. And it's worked out well so far. It really has, especially now, getting later in my career. I can be not in the office and get an email, hey, we just got this, hey, we just got that. It's just a good feeling to know that we've worked together as a team. We're a partnership, we're not a team. And to know that business is moving forward, even though I'm still focused on my particular piece and they're doing the other areas. And that's really helped. And now it will help within the transition as I bring someone else in to take over my book at some point, those partnerships to be in place to help coach them along and teach them those particular areas that I'm not versed as teaching them as well as I could.
Thanks, Mike. Connell, I know you spent a lot of your time, kind of building teams. How have you transitioned that into your personal practice?
Well, along the theme of the last question, over the years, I've always looked at those products where you're going to get continued revenue.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was group insurance. And back in the day, you know, we were selling a lot of whole life, and the renewal stream on the whole life was great. You know, and I've transitioned to then doing more of the managed money now. But I think the team building thing is more like what Mike was talking about, in that I'm not the best detail person, but I'm great with the clients and dealing with the clients. And so I look to partner up with more detailed people to do the financial planning process, do the compliance issues, and again, splitting that revenue. I have really no problem doing that, because everybody's doing their part of the job, and overall, we're all concentrating on the areas that we do best and that we like to do the most.
Yep. Focus on the stuff you like doing. That's it's a key to the business, right? So, you know, in terms of building a practice, referrals are the most important. That's the lifeblood of, you know, building a successful practice. Doug, you talked a little bit about being involved in some of the associations for contractors and that sort of thing. Do you want to share some thoughts around how you built those relationships? I mean, obviously showing up is the most important part, but how long did it take to develop, you know, a trusted referral source from, you know, those types of organizations?
Takes a long time. I've been a member of one of those groups for almost 25 years and the other for the last 10, on and off. It's a big investment of effort, time, but and I was more aggressive. I mean, aggressive just in going to the meetings and being there, committee work early on. But the reason I did that is because I probably wasn't as strong on the phone, and it was cold to Boston. So when I lived in Cambridge, I joined the Boston Chamber, the Cambridge Chamber. When I moved to Arlington, I joined the local chamber out there in Lexington early on. I've been here for 20 years. But the benefit of that is if you met 2 or 3 business owners or high-powered salespeople or attorneys, you know, often you get those types in the Boston Chamber. So any association I joined, the way for me to meet, you know, 5 or 10 new people a month was really to go to those meetings, because I was willing to cold call and say, hey, I have 2 clients in your firm and we're doing some planning. And, you know, I would cold call the wedding pages, but it was always very uncomfortable for me. And I probably wasn't as strong on the phone as some others and maybe didn't make as many phone calls. So the way I got over that was joining things that gave me some familiarity. The challenge with that is you have to keep showing up. And so I would say 3 to 5 years, you know, you get your first 10 clients, you know, and then I would just expand. I'd say, okay, Mr. Commercial General Contractor, who are your favorite 10 subs that pay their bills and work, you know, do 5 million in sales or more and have a nice HVAC company or whatever type of firm I was trying to prospect to. I would bring lists. I would really try to expand within that industry pretty aggressively. And if you had a good relationship, one of the things I was good at is building trust very quickly and getting people like me right away, which helped in prospecting. Obviously, they were usually willing to send me 3 or 4 or 5 names just because they knew I was going to, you know, treat them well. So that's kind of how I got involved initially. And it was really the only way for me to expand in the business owner market. That's the only way I found I could do it, because they're so hard to get on the phone and so hard to get to say yes. The only way to get them is to meet them face to face in a low risk setting.
Yeah. Business owners are busy, that's for sure. Mike or Connell, do either one of you really leverage COIs in your practice? And how have you developed those relationships over time?
So I've COIs have been a piece of my business. I won't say it's been a big piece of my business. I have a couple strategic relationships that I've developed over time. Basically, a lot of it by creating the relationship myself on a lifestyle situation. Doug's talking about target marketing, and he certainly did. Target marketing in the construction group. So you have lifestyle, business style. Mine was lifestyle, and really people I came in touch with that I played tennis with, I played golf with, all the different basketball leagues, all the different leagues I've done, softball. I've really been able to create relationships with those people on a relationship basis first, and then just naturally came where business would follow suit. That's the way I got most of my referrals. If I did a lot by personal observation. If I saw someone, and I live in the town of Needham, my office in Needham, so I do a lot of business in Needham. But if I see a successful person, or back in the day, they just had a baby, bought a house, etc., I'd find out who they knew. If any of them were my clients, inevitably I'd have a client or two that were friends with them and leverage that relationship and say, hey, do you mind giving them a call? Mention I use your name. Oh, that'd be great. I've gone to the point where I've had those people reach out to the individual I'm looking to meet, to give them a heads up. I'll be calling. So it's really just been on a personal observation, kind of a lifestyle market that's created my referrals as well as my centers of influence.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and I would say, I've been a very active member of chambers, of referral groups, and that type of thing, where you then, and I've focused more, I've gotten more of my referrals from accountants, CPAs, or property casualty agents. The P&C relationship's probably been the best with me, where I can give some mostly personal or in some business P&C referrals to them, in exchange then help them with their life insurance clients, or if they had clients that had investments or rollovers or something that they would refer me to. So that's where my success in referrals.
Great. Thanks, Connell. And just to expand on the topic of building a practice, a business, I don't know if it was Doug or Mike, one of the two of you said it's not always an easy road, right? I think it was you, Mike, that said, everybody encounters some struggles along the way. What do you think the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome has been, and how did you get past that and learn from it, and build a stronger practice moving forward?
Well, actually, Doug said it too. I think Connell probably said it as well. We all know it's a tough business. I think everyone on this call knows it's tough business. It's been a lot of challenges and hurdles. I tell people in new business, first year is easy, second year is tough because you've used up all the friends and family in the first year. Second year is tough because, as you say, you need to find new people and get that second generation of leads. Fifth year is tough, I found, because now you're trying to start transition from the personal market to the business market. I think 10 years is tough for the simple reason is that you now are trying to raise the bar even higher. You've done better than you ever thought, and now you're saying, okay, I need to keep this going and building. 20 years, it's like, okay, how do I keep this going, but doing all the other fun things I like to do. Quite honestly, as you said, I think I still not struggle with, but I remember in the early years when I was married, three kids. My wife was working, then she wasn't working, but it was, how did I tell her I was going out to play golf that day, right? I mean, it was a hard thing for her to compute, but I was going to go play golf today, but yet I have this business where I'm, trying to grow this practice, and And that was work. I saw Randy Fines on this thing, and I think he's done an unbelievable job of creating a relationships by that specific activity. But I think it's something where it's work. I mean, yes, it's enjoyable, it's golf, it's fun, but I got to tell you, I've been on the golf course so many times with clients and trying to cultivate things where it's like, I can't get off this course fast enough to get back to my business. I create a relationship, et cetera. I've had fun. It's been good. But so that's why I think it's for any new person in the industry or has that struggle, just think about it, that it's tough. You have to figure it out and you have to make sure they get on board and understand what's happening and actually show them the result. Not that I've really ever done that and drawn a line from this golf match or game to this client, et cetera. But it's important. I think that is to try to mix the lifestyle. Our business is a lifestyle of creating those relationships and to have people around us think that it's business. I mean, it's inevitable. How people, oh, what are you doing today? Golf time? Are you working? Do you work? And it's like, yeah, this is work and I enjoy it, but it's work. So that's kind of an off the wall, crazy struggle or hurdle I've had to get over and mentally get over, but it was real and it was there. I don't know if Connell or Doug, you guys ever experienced that.
Well, I guess the biggest hurdle that I had was, everything, like you said, Mike, the success that you have sort of builds up over time. And, I got to the point where, I was running an agency, going on these company trips, accumulating some wealth of my own, getting the place up at Sunapee. And then, all of a sudden, my wife has a stroke. And and so one of the things that keeps me going now is all of that work that I did for myself, me being the client, having the insurance coverages, and having everything else. And right about then, I was transitioning out of management with one company into another company. And so it was really the fact that I had a good foundation of being, one of my own best clients that really enabled me not to worry financially about what was happening, but I could focus on, my mental and spiritual part of me to keep me going. And that's what then, still to this day keeps me going as well.
Thanks, Connell. Doug, do you have anything to share about any struggles that you've experienced along the way?
Yeah, I think early on, kind of that 1 to 5 year area where I just, felt very uncomfortable that I didn't know what I was talking about, especially with more complex situations. And now, 27 years later, the more complex it is, the more interested I am, because no one else wants to learn how to, or the barrier to entry is high for someone to learn, very sophisticated estate planning techniques, gifting investments in houses and insurance. And, I have a fee-based planning license. So we do a lot of that now, flat fee planning on a project basis. And the reason is because it gets very complicated and we have to pay the staff and me for our time. And it's really a door opener. It's not really a profitable piece of our practice, but it can be a door opener to some very interesting situations. So the reason I relay that is the challenge is learning all of that stuff takes years and years and years, and I'm still learning. And the other piece is getting comfortable being uncomfortable all of the time. Whether it's phoning, prospecting to Mr. Big, telling my wife I have to work on a Sunday. I mean, whatever it is, I don't like to be anxious a lot, but the reality is when you own a business, and every business owner has it, what I've discovered, how am I getting the next sale? How am I getting the next deal? How am I going to grow the business? And if a business owner doesn't have that mindset, typically they're not growing and they're not that successful, frankly. And so being uncomfortable all the time is something I've had to kind of learn to live with. And sometimes it's fine, and sometimes it's a little bit more stressful, I would say. But that's how I and my business partner kind of run the business. And we're always trying to think about how we grow to the next level. You know, in the next 10 years, by age 60, 62, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I'm going to want to run like that, but with 5 kids going to college, I don't have a choice in the next 7 or 8 years.
Got some bills to pay.
Correct.
So talked a little bit about, reaching certain level of success. How long did it take each one of you to feel like you have reached that level where you feel successful? Or have you reached that yet? Is there still, I think everybody, just in the discussion so far, everybody feels like there's still room to grow, but how long did it take you to feel successful? And was there kind of a turning point where you said, all right, I got this now? Connell, you want to start with that?
Yeah. When you're in management, your success is only, what have you done for me today? And of course, we're all used to, come January 1st, the slate is all nice and clean and you're starting over at zero again. And so, and both Doug and Mike have talked about that fear. I think you always have that fear that, that next sale is never going to come, or, that you're never going to meet that next good client. So I'm still, I'm enjoying the point where I'm at now in life, but I'm not sure I knew exactly when it was that I was successful.
I agree with that. I mean, what is the definition of success? I think in our own right, we're all successful. On those calls, still successful. We're still in the business. I remember when I got in the business, someone said, after 10 years, I felt comfortable in the business, and I felt I could, and some people said 20 years. So the point is that I guess I'll look back at each year and say, was that successful or not? I've hit my goals in the clubs I want to do. I find that is successful. I feel successful in the sense that I've raised a family, loving wife, a lot of friends, family. So to me, that's my success measuring stick, I guess. And I guess I don't know. So it's tough. Successful is tough to define. I feel as I'm successful because I'm still in the business and I'm able to do what I want and be able to earn a good living. And to me, that's a sign of success. But I guess I'll never feel 100% successful because each year, as Connell says, we start all over again.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think I lost you for a minute. You guys hear that? Has some Wi-Fi issues at the house. So I think when, ultimately still always working at it, but when you can do what you're telling all your clients to do, which is, set up all this protection you need for your family, save 20% of your gross income, start to build some wealth of your own, as Connell said earlier, you start to see the train kind of rolling finally, but it seemed like it took forever. I mean, I started at 25 and it took till 40 to really start. I was not a fast starter. It's the stick-to-itiveness that has built my larger business over time, and the unwillingness to give up, and the focus on growth. So it took a long time, at least in my case, to feel like I got money in the bank. I can actually educate 5 children. I can actually save for my own retirement. Northwestern Mutual still has some good old-fashioned, very solid benefits for their reps. So that helps at 27 years in. So, retirement security at this point is not in question. It's done pretty much in terms of what the pension is and Social Security and what I've saved along the way. So the success measurement now is, can I transition a business that I've built and get some liquidity for it? I mean, it would be nice to be able to sell it. I don't know how that's going to happen. They tell me there's all these banking relationships and reps will buy you. But frankly, like any other business owner, I don't believe it until the check hits my account and it clears, and maybe even another year or two passes after that. So the success to be determined in the next 15 years, if I work till 68 or 69 or own. I may work till 75 or 80, but I will only be an owner, hopefully, to 15 or 17 years from now, and maybe a very small minority owner just for some upside after that. So the successful transition in the business, I think, will be the measure of success going forward for new reps that are working with us. I just don't know how that's going to happen. We haven't figured that one out yet.
It's an interesting point about, kind of the goalpost moving over time, but that being a good thing because that keeps you going and that keeps you motivated to continue to, to feel like you haven't reached that level of success where you put your feet up, because then, look, you said earlier, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So, good insight. Thanks, Doug. So obviously client development is a huge part of the business. Making sure that you're seeing new people, you're working with current clients to refine their plans. How has your client development or sales process evolved over time? Though you talked a little bit about transition to more of a planning platform, that sort of thing. And some of that has to do with industry changes, but how's your practice evolved to adapt to the current environment, as well as the objectives of what you want to accomplish for your clients?
In my case, I really find it hard to sell, a $2 million term policy, even if it's a $5,000 or $10,000 premium, which is a good case for all of us. I'm really interested in holistic, comprehensive planning. So I lead with the planning now, and our fees are $2,000 to $30,000, depending on the complexity of the plan. And the way that the business has changed for me from that perspective is it's a low risk proposition for the prospect. You can fire me after the plan is done. You don't have to pay me if you don't think you got some value out of it. In fact, until you sign off, I don't get paid. So it's a low risk way to introduce someone to the practice, to the capabilities, to a holistic plan. So the practice has changed quite a bit from that perspective. I mean, I still will bring in $1 million account or a $500,000 account. I still will sell a $10,000 premium, but I don't really like it. That's not what I want to do for the next 15 years. I want to work on very complex problems for clients, and that will lead to the practice growing just by default, because they'll probably implement some or all of what we recommend going forward, or we'll have a relationship and they can do a fee-based plan with us every 2 years, because they're not getting that strategic planning advice maybe from another advisor.
Mike or Connell, have either one of you had a change to your practice, your sales process, client development?
Yeah, I mean, mine has, in the sense, as I said, I started off as a life guy, so to speak, and you have life guys, investment guys, and I saw the shortfall in both. So I definitely transitioned into a holistic, as Doug said, planning. Use a system called the living balance sheet, and we basically look at their 4 domains: their assets, liability, their cash flow, and their protection. And all of them interweave with one another. But I'll start with protections. Protection first, not only. But in order for us to build everything else out, we have to protect their cash flow. We have to do that by making sure they have the proper amount of liability insurance, disability insurance, health insurance, will, trust, etc. And if they do that and it leads to them buying that term policy and they choose not to move forward, I'm fine with that for the simple reason I put the protection in place. That's what keeps me up at night, is that if something doesn't work and they don't have that protection in place, something was to happen, that's what bothers me most. And that's what I drive. And I do protection first, and we'll do the planning after that. If they want to do the planning first, I'll say, no, it's protection first, planning second. It's protection first mode only, as I said. But that's the piece that we need to shore up first, because that's really what has the biggest impact in your family's world. And I'm advocating for your wife and your kids at this point, or your spouse at this point. So it's important that we get that piece done and we move into the planning, which will be done. It'll be incorporated with the protection we've done. But that's really kind of opened my eyes to say, hey, yes, I can do the piece I like to do best, but I have the tools and the systems in place to do the rest of it, the investments, estate planning, debt consolidation, et cetera. So it's that's how it's my practice has evolved to be able to do it that way.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and I would just kind of go along with what Mike's saying there, is that you make them a client first. That's how I was taught. Make them a client first. Once you get them as a client, then do the complete financial plan and get all of their assets and all their needs taken care of. But it certainly then I have been more and more doing the comprehensive planning process.
And obviously, the pandemic has impacted everyone, some more than others. Is there anything particular that you have seen change in your practice regarding the pandemic, particularly in a client development or sales process? I assume probably a lot more stuff is remote, but any tips or insights on that end of things, how you've adapted your practice, and good or bad, I guess, how the pandemic has changed things?
That's
I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it at Zoom.
Yeah, Zoom. Yeah.
I mean, I would say that, the volume of calls has been extraordinary, especially, I was so scared that I was going to be broke in the first 6 months from March to, September of that year, 2020, that we just, we weren't very active in March and April. And then we're like, we're going to be bankrupt if we don't start seeing people somehow. So we did pick up on the Zoom thing pretty quick. And although the volume of calls is, I would have 8 calls some days, literally, we'd be just stacked. The sales volume as a percentage was much lower, meaning you might only sell 20% instead of 30% of those closes. But the volume of calls was so much higher that we ended up being up like 15%, both 20 and 21. And the markets obviously helped with the investment world. But that has put a layer of flexibility in our practice, which is quite nice. Connell, we actually have a place up in Sunapee too. So Fridays, if I'm up there at 8 a.m. and I have 4 meetings from 8 to 2, I feel good about myself being on the dock by 4. And then I had a full day. I had 4 meetings before 2, and that's more meetings than I used to have driving around in my car. I could only keep 3. 4 would be a really busy day. So it's changed things quite dramatically with existing client sales. They're a lot easier to make, a lot more efficient on Zoom. You don't get as many referrals, and you probably have a lot more difficult time selling a brand new prospect. At least I do via Zoom until I see them in person. But it has added a layer of very big efficiency for us.
Yeah.
Likewise for me, I find I'm more efficient. I also find my high net worth clients and business owners are much more receptacle to Zoom because it's efficient, and we have our attention for 15, 20 minutes, half hour, how long the call goes. It's the screen right there. They have to focus on what we're talking about. So I think it's made my business a little bit more efficient. Like you fellas, I'm up in New Hampshire, up on Squam Lake, so I'll be up there this afternoon. Have a number of calls there tomorrow. I'll be doing Zoom, but the freedom it's allowed me to do has been fantastic. And I'd say pre-pandemic, if I told someone I'm, in Florida for 2 weeks, they'd say, well, it sounds like you're out of the business, you're retired. It's like, no, far from now. It's people don't even care where you are. Some clients say, where are you today? And I'll say, I'll tell them where I am. But I'm working just as if it was before, but it's been more efficient. And there's been some real silver linings to the COVID. And on top of that, I have actually had developed new clients during COVID that I'd never met. It was all done Zoom. Never saw them, met them physically, and it turned into a referral, and it was all done remotely. And it was really very eye-opening that I was able to do that. Where 5 years ago, someone told me that would be possible, I'd say there's no way. So that's really how my business developed with all the pandemic.
For an industry that typically reacts pretty slowly, it's amazing how quickly things change when they have to, right?
Sure.
So, we've covered a lot. We've got a few minutes left. I want to briefly just touch on goals and how important goals are in each of your practices, because I think when we get started, it's kind of drilled into our head from our managing partners and that sort of stuff. But talk a little bit about how important they are to you, if the importance has changed over time, and how you communicate those goals effectively to your team if you have a team. Well, Mike, do you want to start with that?
Sure. Goals are obviously extremely important. There's the goals that are created for you, whether it's MDRT, Leaders Club, Executive Club, or President's Club, with the various, with Guardian for that matter. So those are goals that are built in and you focus on. But I also focused more on the number of calls per day was more important to me, as far as am I having that activity, and the goals activity was important to me, and cases, ongoing case live action, cases. So those are extremely important, and it allows us, we have so much free time in this business that you need to have you need to set yourself these goals and standards to live to. Otherwise, you could, get off track, and before you know it, you're off track, and it's hard to get back on track. So obviously extremely important, and yeah, part of my business.
I guess I would just second what Mike was talking about, is that it's the activity. And so with my team, it's talking about setting goals on activity for the day, and those daily activities will then translate into weekly and monthly goals. It's the old saying, if you don't know where you're going, then you're going nowhere. Well, you got to set some goals and have some parameters.
Yeah, I would say it's similar. We still are using the Algranum client builder book 27 years later. Owe a huge debt to him at Northwestern in particular, because he's made successful businesses out of people who never would have had a successful business, in my opinion, just by showing you how to do the numbers. And I may be one of those, because I did not know how to build a practice, and tracking it with points just makes it easy. So 27 years later, we're still setting goals on a monthly and annual basis with the client builder group that we see every month. And today we're having a barbecue at the end of the day, which won't be so much goals oriented, obviously, but I've been in a client builder for 27 years. And while it gets boring, monotonous, it's hard to think about. The goal setting is a little different, but part of the benefit to that is the ideas. We had a guy who did a big premium finance case this year. We had another guy who's, somehow figuring out how to write $1 million of premium. We have another guy who's bringing in 100 million of assets. So you get all these different ideas. Another person who's done some corporate, very large, public company corporate insurance plans. So the benefit of setting those goals every month and then feeling small against someone else who's doing things very creatively that you haven't done before keeps you motivated, keeps me motivated. I'll speak for myself. It also is intimidating, but I think if you're always feeling uncomfortable, that's a good thing, right? So I think that's how I stay motivated. And whenever I think about like, geez, I'd like to retire. I hate this business. This guy just hung up on me, said no for the 8th time, blew me off. I always go back to that's what we get paid for. We get paid a lot of money to get rejected all the time. That's the business. So as long as you can live with that, you can make a really nice living and you can grow a very nice business. And that's the only barrier to entry, ego risk. So I've accepted that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the goal setting. You're just going to get beat up once or twice a week, maybe less. Maybe it's more than that in the beginning, but that's a small price to pay for a significant opportunity.
Yeah. And each time you get beat up, you're a step closer to getting the yes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug. So one last question, and then I want to open it up for questions from the audience. If you had one thing to share with either younger advisors or just somebody who's looking for some insight into how you've gotten to the position you're in your practice, in your career, what do you think the most important nugget of information would be that you could share with other advisors?
So and I'll say this to all the young agents, field reps that come to our office. If you've heard the word a number of times today, sales, selling, closing. We are in sales. I'm sorry. I mean, people want to say we're financial advisor, financial planners. We are all those things. But unless you can want to sell and ask for the premium or ask them to buy, whatever it may be, and close, you're not going to be successful in this business. And some people just think they're coming to this business, oh, I'm a financial advisor, an investment advisor, et cetera. And they're not salespeople. They're going to have a rude awakening because at the end of the day, we need to be able to sell and close business. We need the people to take action. And every industry does it. We've all heard it. My son played lacrosse in college and he had his ACL ripped and we had to go see three different surgeons. Oh my God, that was a sales process from the minute we walked in the door to the minute we left. And if people don't think you're being sales is a big part of your business, you need to understand that and embrace it and get good at it, because that's going to be your key to success in this business. That's at all levels.
Thanks, Mike. Doug or Connell?
I think that's a great observation, because although I'm slow and methodical and I don't like conflict, I'm not direct, you do have to ask for the check at some point. I mean, most of my sales end up being the natural conclusion to a process, but sometimes there is someone who's had you for 5 meetings and you have to say, hey, what are we doing? Because I'm not coming back. And I think I've gotten a lot more comfortable with that, because it is just a natural way to ask. Like, I've been here 5 times, spent a lot of time. I know you paid a fee and that's great, but the time is up. And if we're not going to spend any more time together, that's fine. But I need you to make a decision on whatever you want to do. And if it's no, that's great. If it's yes, wonderful. Let's figure it out. The other thing is that joint work, which we haven't talked about at all, huge. 50% of something's better than 100% of nothing. I probably did 80% joint work my first 2 years in the business. Finally learned how to work on my own. And now, 27 years later, I probably still do 50% of my work jointly. And one of the things that I do well, Mike alluded to before, is I'm very planning focused. So if people have a sense they need a plan with a larger prospect, I'll often be called on, because we have the team to put it together and because I have the license to do it. And, that joint work has really expanded over the last 5 years with new reps and senior reps that just don't want to get involved in that.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Carl?
Yeah, and I would add to the joint work. I'm going to say, since I've been back in my own personal production, over 90% of the cases and clients that I have gotten have all been with at least somebody else, or one or two people, other people besides myself. The key, what we're all talking about sales here, that I stress is going through the sales process. It's the 5 steps that you have to go through. Where I've seen advisors fail is they go from the introduction and here's what we can do to the close, without doing a complete fact finder, which includes then all the feelings, doing and then the proper analysis and coming up with the alternatives, making a proper presentation, and then getting into the close. And it really then is then the service work that happens afterwards, which then gets you that repeat business, gets you those referrals, really then solidifies the client. So the key is then going through the 5-step process, and then creating a client.
Yeah, and especially as the industry changes and moving towards more of that planning focus, it becomes ever more important to have people that you trust, you can work with, who have expertise in certain areas, so that whether it's joint work or actually building a team around you that you employ or whatever. I think having more eyes on those types of questions is going to continue to grow in importance. So I think that's great insight from everyone. All right, great. So I do want to spend a few minutes, to see if anyone in the audience has questions. I did get a question from Bob Matson. Bob, great having you on the call. Bob asks, what do each of you do to recharge, especially when there are more demands by clients than ever in today's environment? Connell, I bet you go up to Sunapee. And Doug, actually, too. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know you had a place up there, Doug. We'll have to meet up at the sandbar or something.
Yeah. A few years ago, we started taking Mondays from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. to plan for the week with the staff. And part of that is to decompress from the prior week. I don't want to start Monday morning with a fact find or close, or hopefully an irate client, although that does happen. I just had someone email me last Saturday. I was pretty upset with him, but about market returns and things like that. I think he emailed me 7 a.m. on a Saturday, and I was dumb enough to check my email at probably 8 or 9. So I had to wait till Monday to respond. And so that stress can obviously eat away at you, and you can't be on 24/7, especially when you have 5 kids and parents' weekends and all the other stuff I got going on. So Fridays, I'm off from 8 to 11, pretty much. Mondays, we are prepping 8 to 2. So that really leaves me 4 days in a normal week or 3 days in a short week where I am working. And I don't mind working from, 2 to 6 on a Monday, especially during the school year, or, 8 a.m. till 6 or 8 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't mind having 5 or 6 or 7 appointments, Zoom or in person. But decompression, like Friday, I'm toast on Friday, so I need to, bring it down a notch from 8 to 11 on a Friday. And then I might have 2 meetings, 12:1, maybe a 2. I try to be done by no later than 4:30 on Friday. And I've been sticking to that schedule for over 3 years at this point since I turned 50.
Thanks, Doug. Mike, anything you do to recharge, refocus?
Same for me. I pretty much will Friday afternoons, pretty much after 12 o'clock on Friday, I will, I haven't gotten to the point where I'll put out an office, but pretty much go play golf, summer, take off and just maybe check the email at the end of the day. But just to cut that time out for myself and my family is important. During the COVID, it was a little difficult because, you know, the parameters were off. The world was different. We worked from home. We worked all different hours. But the way I recharge, Bob, is a great question, is basically just take that time away. Just do what I want to do until I find out Friday afternoons.
Thanks, Mike. Carl?
And I would, I've been very religious about Fridays. I play golf up at Haverhill every Friday. Even back when I was in management, I would then maybe work half a day and then shoot up there on Fridays. Now I take the full Friday off from work, and everybody knows that I'm playing golf on Friday. Then I'll shoot up to the lake afterward. So even though my handicap is going in the wrong direction.
So each one of you kind of alluded to the fact just being really intentional and protective of the time that you have to yourself. Everyone wants to help their clients, but if you're not taking time for yourself, you're in the long run, you can't help them as effectively. So I think that's great insight. Mike Ross asked a question. 25 years ago, the business was very different than it is today. What's the biggest or most surprising change and the most positive change in the industry that you've seen?
Compliance.
So is that a positive?
Well, it's a pain in the arse, as they say in Ireland, but it certainly has cleaned up the business a lot. And you know, all of us NAIFA members have really been client centric and have always done things in the best interest of the client. This has just then made that more of a steady rule, and certainly has weeded out, I think, some people as well.
You know, I'd say, you know, it's a pretty simple answer, but technology. I mean, I remember when I first got into business, we would have one person in the office who would run the illustrations, and they were, you know, on that computer paper. And I remember the back of the old Phoenix, Al Block would run those illustrations for us. And so,
no, Mike, know, I had the rate book, Mike. I would do those illustrations. Okay.
Well, there you go. Even better. So just technology. Obviously, we're able to do this today and have all this on the phone without being in person in a conference room, meeting with clients, Zoom, and all this. I mean, I told someone I have a Dell computer, a laptop. They're like, "Geez, you know, you're a dinosaur." I'm like, "Oh my God, I just got the thing 4 or 5 years ago. I need the Surface and this and that." It's just it's unsettling sometimes what we need to do. But that's technology, Mike, is the simple answer for me. That's really changed my business and how I do my business.
Yeah, I would say that's technology is huge, and probably is the biggest change. It is amazing to be like the older guys now and to see what some of these new reps are doing. I mean, we have a rep who has been extremely successful, probably has not left his office or his home office he was working remotely before remote, you know, so I'm just amazed at how much production some of these reps are doing over Zoom, having never met 80% of their clients in person. It's just extraordinary. And they're working from Florida, New Hampshire, you know, they're going down to Florida for 2 months if they don't have kids yet. You know, some of these guys are in their early 30s and still newly married or have very young kids and can travel. And they're changing the nature of how we do business, which is a huge eye opener for me from a technology standpoint. I don't think I'll ever go that direction. Certainly I'd like to work from Florida in 7 or 8 years for a month or two. I think I can do that with the new capabilities of Zoom. But these people are doing it 80 to 100% of the time. And it's incredible from a sales for me to see from a sales perspective.
Thanks, Doug. Adam Sachs asked, how do each one of you incorporate no into your practice to focus on the right type of client or volunteer opportunity? Something that I might be able to learn from myself, Adam. Thank you.
How to focus on the no?
Yeah. How do you weed out things that you don't want to focus on versus the things that you do want to focus on and be comfortable saying no to the things that sap your energy versus, fill your tank?
Simply say no, Adam. I don't want to answer that question. I don't like it. I think we've all talked about partnership, bring people in that, I'm not very detail oriented. So any case I know that I have the client's detail oriented, I will partner up with who I think is the best fit for that, because I just don't enjoy doing the details. You have to do it. You have to document everything. And I do that, but I'll have someone else that does it as well and do it better for me. So to really offload the things that need to be done, I don't like to do, to other people that like to do that. It works out to be a great partnership.
Yeah, I think, similarly, if we can't do something, we have relationships with, a 25-year-old rep, a 35-year-old rep. So the reality is that with 7 staff and rent in downtown Boston and the expenses of health insurance for the practice and 401k and all the things I described before, the cost of doing business is very high. So, we can't write a $2,000 premium and be profitable. So we have to say no. And I have a person who is a new rep who does some phoning for me. And sometimes we'll have a not so great prospect. So we will look at everyone up on LinkedIn before we even meet them. And I'm not trying to be elitist. It's just not affordable for us to work with certain people. And if it takes $2,000 of time for my underwriting person to underwrite a case, or $2,000 of time for my operations person on the investment side to roll over and do the analysis, if it's a $3,000 a year fee, that's not going to work. So our minimums have gone up. They're probably approaching $750,000 to $1 million on the investment side, just because of what I described, trying to manage that client every year. And the premium minimums have gone up just as a function of trying to be conscious about staying profitable as a business. Working as a business owner, you've got to be profitable. So those are decisions we've had to make when people bring us stuff. And so it's been easier to say no, and you can say it in a way this is just, not something we can do. Most of the clients are 45 to 70, and that's kind of the market we're in now. And they have to have the ability to save X amount. They have to run a business that's this size with 10 employees. And that's our prospect profile. So I don't have sometimes I feel bad, but there are also a lot of 25 to 40-year-old reps who can help you that have a lot of experience.
Yeah. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah, I think what both of you are saying is it doesn't matter who says no to us. It matters who says yes. You can come out and see me, because if it's the wrong person, then you're spinning your wheels or you're investing your time in low profit margin issues.
Yeah. Great. So we're running up to about 10:30. Does somebody have a question? Okay. All right. Well, I want to first off say thank you to our panelists. Great discussion. Thank you for everyone joining us this morning. As I mentioned before, this was recorded. So you can always go back and watch this again. If you have colleagues, please share that with them. And a couple of events we've got coming up on the advocacy side of things. This is 2023 is a new legislative session. Legislative sessions in Massachusetts are 2 years long. So there'll be an incoming freshman class. We'll be having our annual, or not annual, but our freshman legislative breakfast in the middle of January. We're maybe January 15th. Mark, can you confirm that if we have a date yet?
I will see what I can do. Hold on. Go full steam ahead. I'll be right back.
Yeah, and then we also have our Western Mass Legislative Breakfast, which is the first Friday in every year in January. So that's going to be January 6th. So please look out for those announcements that'll be coming out, and we'll have obviously some good events lined up in 2023 as well. Thanks again for everyone joining us this morning. Any questions, please reach out, and please like and share on social media. Mark, looks like maybe you found it.
What I found is that the 15th is a Sunday. So when we send a link out to everybody, Josh, we'll make sure we include the date that the freshman legislative breakfast is going to happen. Probably at Carrie Nation, right, on Beacon Hill?
More than likely, yeah, I would say so. Thank you. All right, so thanks everyone, and have a great day.